So I work for Share, and I kind of started in going into training. I had it's a pretty monumental uh, breakdown 5 years ago, and it sort of it led me to Share. It led me to support groups, primarily ACA, which is Adult Children for Alcoholics, dysfunctional families. This thing that sort of happened with a career I had in just knocked me back to being a kid, and it was disabling for a couple of years. So I have done the peer training. I'm also bipolar, and I work on it. I don't do that as a full-time job. I'm still trying to balance out my own self-care. I can talk to friends, I can talk in support groups and stuff like that, but it is a lot to take that on as a career path, but also, you know, I try and help where I can. I totally believe in the peer support system. I've seen therapists and psychiatrists and never really told them what was going on. I was always afraid of that. They're going to write something down that's going to come back and harm me and disclose, so anyways, a little bit background about me. And that's great. Recovery's a journey for sure. And whether that's mental health or addiction, I'd say I'd fall into the addiction side more. Bipolar sometimes brings a very intense sexual side. So I've gone to meetings like SLA and SCA, which is sexual compulsive, which is kind of the way that I have dealt with stress and issues.
I am a peer support specialist
Mhm.
and recovery coach, life skills. I do have life experience to bring into what I get to do now.
Okay.
And I've been in the recovery community for, don't judge me, okay, for 38 years.
All right.
I always tell everyone I went to my first meeting in like the kindergarten bus. It was a short bus for sure. Um, anyway, I had 28 years sober, relapsed in and out for 5 years, 5 years back in,
Mhm.
and get to bring a lot from, the, as I said, the lived experience side, but also from the I don't want to call it a business
Mhm.
side, but the training and the application side to really, help people. I do
Okay.
both. I have the substance abuse piece, I have the mental health piece, and I kind of do them both together for a very, very large insurance company,
I
which I
see.
cannot say the name because I'm participating on my own. I am not representing anyone.
I see. That's well, thanks for joining. And
Thank you.
Tyrese, Tyrese, I see that you're on here.
Hi, everyone. Tyrese here, located in Seattle, Washington. And thank you for allowing me to be part of the space.
Great. Thank you. Have you been to any other sessions today?
I have. I've started from the beginning and now up to here. So I've partaken in each round.
Great. Great. I don't know if you heard that there's an overall peer services in general focused in California, but it's really, you know, peer work is not been around for all that long. So there's always information in California in general. There's some laws that are going about that is going to take away some funding for mental health. So programs, are at risk for, losing funding sources. So, but I completely believe in the peer work, and it certainly has helped me. So, no, wait a few more minutes, see if some other people join. Have you do you currently go to any support groups that are you find more comfortable being if there's a LGBTQIA plus focus?
To answer your question, yes, not only do I attend, I support several, not only within the state that I currently reside in, but supporting other states that have limited representation as well. So I'm highly engaged in the overall supporting for the group itself.
That's great. It's really important. I mean, I'm 53. I came out in my mid-20s, and it's still, like, for me, it's a challenging thing still. There's always these situations that come up where I've got to explain things. And the more I kind of am able to do that and talk about it, the easier it can be. Or, I could get knocked back into being upset and not wanting to share certain things. Some people just don't understand. ACA is my primary program that really brought us in. So that's adult children of alcoholic dysfunctional families. The way I kind of assess that in my group, because I do also go to the primary, meetings that anyone can go to, and then I have a study group, which is a smaller group of people. So there's a lot of things I felt like I've led a double life. At times, because there was so much shame that, and I'm not always that comfortable talking to people. And I feel like, you grow up maybe in a dysfunctional family because no one understands if you've got this secret hidden. People don't necessarily know how to discuss that. So I did have an alcoholic father. But I also, ACA really helps me be able to talk about what my feelings were and things that I've heard growing up, very negative things and stuff. So you said you lead some meetings?
I do.
Paris?
Yes.
That's great. Have you been doing that for a while?
Yeah, for a few years now, actually. So quite comfortable in the space, but I am a lifelong learner. So I love being able to still grow and see how others are doing, because it's about, like you said, kind of getting a far reach. And so if I can see what's been successful in other places, I just like to kind of keep the success going if it's something that's helping communities that just need the help.
That's great. I'm a bit of the same way. Like, basically, in some ways, this is sort of like a discussion. I'm just kind of wondering if some more people might be showing up. But PFLAG, have you been to meetings?
It's been a few years, but yeah, I come with a little bit of age to me too. I'm in the mid-40s, so I definitely have had some time engaging in and out. I supported some in the San Francisco area a few years back.
Right. There's a Los Angeles meeting that I've attended, more so on Zoom, and they have a gender focus, so they're expanding. I think sometimes with their people have heard about PFLAG, but their name sometimes is associated with, oh, that's how things were. They haven't evolved, but they really have. There's a whole this Los Angeles group, they have meetings that are more focused on gender, and they're reaching out to more Spanish speaking, which is important as well. I've been to things like support groups for men, support groups for LGBT focus, and kind of depends. Bipolar is something that I have, so I have found some, but not very many that kind of circle around mental health that are independent for LGBT, or there's ones I went to that are not currently active. You see Trenda joined, sort of getting started here. I'm sure Juliet's in here. Is there... So, do any of you work in peer services other than Rhonda? We've already been speaking about that. Because a peer support specialist, referring people to support groups, and then maybe during disclosure, finding that maybe they may be looking for that sort of support. Hi. Nice to see you. Um, oh, you have your hand raised, Rhonda. Is that right?
I
See that?
do. Thank you. I don't want to double dip, but I am. I'm that girl. Yeah.
Mhm.
I have a daughter that is in the community that is an absolutely most amazing person that I know in the world. That she came out to me when she was 16. And I had to tell her immediately, no more sleepovers because it was very confusing on who was where and what was what. But as a mom, I got to grow up with a lot of these girls that were, figuring it out. My daughter always knew there wasn't a whole lot for her to figure out. I do have the opportunity to bring that experience as a mother to other mothers that their kids may be going through something, but also with those the adults that have that are coming through and have so many struggles, as well as I do a lot of work with transgender. And I don't know if I just have this aura that they know that this is a safe place, that nothing they're gonna tell me is gonna shock me.
Mhm.
And, so I'm really excited to be on this space to learn how to, as a peer support specialist, um, I to really how to say the right things. So I wanna listen to you guys as you talk about, I wanna say the right things when I'm talking to folks and not just from, you know, a mom's perspective.
Um, Thanks for sharing that. It's really important. I think that's one thing that with the PFLAG meetings, it does help. Sometimes I'll go just to kind of listen and then share, things about me. In my very early 20s, I was married to my best friend, which we're just sort of figuring that out. That would have been like 1991. So, um, it can be a big process. It's great. My partner, although he a couple of years older than me, came out at 16 in Oklahoma. It's almost like he just was like, "This is me." So it's definitely something that everyone has to come to terms with on their own. There's no sort of one plan for everybody. So it's great that people feel able to approach you and discuss that. I guess with this, maybe want to just sort of go around. Thank you for sharing that, but it's a little bit more of a roundtable rather than me just giving you a list. I have a list of some support groups, and maybe as conversation goes, I can kind of share some of those of what my experience has been. Tyrese is also something. I'm not sure Juliet's here. Um, was in the last presentation, and I was in the room. So if you'd like, anytime chime in, Juliet, send a chat, anything. And Chunda, would you like to do a little bit of your background and what led you to this presentation?
Sure. Yeah, thank you. So for the past 14 years, I was a program director for the Illinois Warm Line, which is Warm Lines are peer support lines. And our Warm Line was the only the completely statewide Warm Line in Illinois, the only Warm Line that I'm aware of actually in Illinois. So we really provided support to diverse populations of people all across every uh, ethnicity, gender identity, sexual orientation, all of it, right? Like every person you could possibly think of, we provided support to. Well, at the end of the year, I decided to resign and open my own business. So I'm now I have a peer run organization and eventually we'll be opening like an actual brick and mortar. Right now I'm doing some training curriculum development. And one of the things that I'm currently in the process of writing is a module on LGBTQIA plus population and how to best meet their needs in crisis situations. So it's really designed for peers that are responding maybe on a mobile crisis response team, or they've been called out on some other type of behavioral health team to support a person who's experiencing some type of crisis, whether that's, you know, a life crisis, a behavioral health crisis, a housing crisis, a substance use crisis, just whatever. And so a piece of our training that I'm working on is culture and communities. And I really wanted to just give an overview on how to best support LGBTQIA populations, and kind of don't have a lot of background in that area. So I'm here to learn.
Okay, great. Thank you for joining. Do you have any, Tyrese had already mentioned, I'm not sure if you were on here, but he's been, or has been working on, or involved in support groups, where if you'd like to talk about that, Tyrese, I can share what my experience has been in the support groups and the peer. I'll just, 5 years ago, I had a pretty massive breakdown. It was work related, but it was just building up for a long time. It had to do with me being able to share what's going on. I was sort of that happy-go-lucky person that really wasn't on the inside. So the mental health side of things, and things built around some trauma-related things when I was younger, I found out about peer services. I did peer training. I did it through Share. And I actually did it twice, because the first time restored my faith in humanity. And that was getting to meet people from all types of backgrounds, people that had been shot, stabbed, you know, and sort of, I was at that first one, the gay guy in the group of like 35 people. And it was amazing to me how things changed over the course of the 8 weeks. People that was like, I wouldn't let a gay person in my house, to, you know, because of beliefs and things, you know, raised with, or religious sort of things, to, you know, hugs by the end and staying in contact. So, but what I learned is to speak out and not have that be something that I hold back till week 8 and then say something. And I've kind of been able to learn how to make that, you know, in conversation, and it really kind of helps, has helped me a lot. So, and support groups around, I think, usually you can go to their like World Services for Al-Anon, for UCA, and really kind of do it. Sometimes they'll have a search or just a Google search to find any that kind of have an LGBTQ focus. There's some that may be closed, that they kind of want to really keep that. And I live in West Hollywood, and there's a West Hollywood Recovery Center. We're lucky to have that. They have a lot of West Hollywood destination sort of location for the gay community. But it's and the peer support side of things, I think it's really important. It's that other identifier, to let your guard down, I guess, a little bit more, if you can disclose if there's any sort of, you know, I've gotten more comfortable, I think, knowing that I have places to speak. So I think that's great that you, Trenda, that you're opening you're starting, and when you mentioned modules, is it peer training overall? And this would be one part of that? Is it when you mentioned the module?
Yeah, it is. So we're doing a week-long training for peers working in crisis settings. And my contract is with the state of Michigan. So Michigan is getting ready to open up some crisis stabilization units, and peers will be hired to work in those settings, but they're also being hired to work in mobile crisis response teams, co-responder teams, and other crisis type of settings. So we thought that it was relevant to provide just overall general kind of umbrella training on how to, how to stay true to values, how to look at crisis through a peer lens, being trauma informed. And we wanted to do, again, something on culture and communities. And so just kind of picking, maybe I think we have like 7 different culture and communities modules that we'll be putting together in that piece or that section of the training. So yeah, it's a kind of a full broad scope of training specifically designed for peers working in crisis settings.
Great. Tyrese, would you like to talk about any of your experience? Are you working as a peer specialist, or is that an interest?
Yeah, it is one of the things that I do have as a part of my professional background. I've done crisis work as well, but Trenda, if I can support you by saying, as you're building your program, how important when you're talking about the specific cultures and community that you're building, to really allow and provide a space for representation. Because, right, if you're going to really have these space and these dialogues where these individuals are looking to be serviced and be supported, it's really about allowing them to have someone that they can see themselves in and as, right? And so many spaces really still miss the mark on that. As a person that do identify in a lot of different marginalized groups, it's allowed me to kind of really you use the word umbrella term, but it's really allowed me to have like a huge magnifying glass, because there's few far representation of that. And when I say the few far representation, it's not because they're not present, it's because we still don't have a voice. Some of us still have not had the voice. We have not had the confidence yet, or just the peace that it takes for us to say, hey, I'm going to put myself out there on such a ledge, which is going to take a little bit of compassion too. So as you're building that program, just remember that empathy is so important, because yeah, you might get 1 or 2 or few far in between that's willing to say, I'm willing to do it, but they're still going through so many experiences as they're beginning to build their voice that way, right? And so just really allow yourself to understand, hey, if we're going to do it, we have to do it with the right representation.
I really like that, Tyrese. And, that's been really important to me all along. So even in the development of the training modules, we've invited individuals that identify with the various different culture and communities to be part of the development process so that their voice is at the table. I'm certainly not going to try to develop a module on a community or a culture that I'm not part of without ensuring that the voice of the people represented are actually at the table and contributing in a meaningful way to that. That's just some of my pure values coming into this work of curriculum development along with me, most definitely. So thank you for that. I really am grateful to hear that, and it's super empowering for me to know that like we're doing that. Like I'm big about there's a seat at the table for you and your voice is valuable and we want to hear it. So I'm grateful for you. Thank you.
Yeah, and absolutely, you're more than welcome. I'll kind of chime in a little bit, give you a little visual moment too. And then just having individuals kind of understand, hey, love, and then just having them understand that inclusion starts at the top, not the bottom. Right. And so when we're getting those individuals that's finally coming in and doing some of those peer aligned works, if they can see executively at the top, which I hold a lot of executive experience like yourself, I've ran organizations for many, many years. I know I have a youthful appearance, but mid 40s, almost 50s coming along. But with that being said, if they really can see along whatever that ecosystem and whatever that succession line looks like within your organization, hey, there's a Tyrese there. Hey, there's a Juliet. Hey, there's a Rhonda. There's a this. People that they can really say, not only can I see them, but I have a path that I can continue to grow myself there. It just strengthens the line of support that they're really looking and needing to have.
Yeah. Thanks for getting on camera.
Yeah, no worries.
One thing that really stuck out, the role playing as far as like peer training, things like that, like the privilege walked is something that sort of interesting thing because I was pretty much blown away by that. But some of the things that like I know from training aspect that made me is having something that I don't know, to making people feel comfortable from day one, maybe, and as an exercise to kind of see where they're at. Have you had it, have you ever felt uncomfortable holding the hand of, someone you're involved with? Things like that. Some things are very like simple, but just sort of like on that basis, those seems like very general, simple things you'd never have to think about. But expressing yourself that way, um, I have to say I'm pretty fortunate in some of that, but I also had a lot of religion ingrained in my head, and it's sort of like the only access that I had when I was young was like watching Sally Jessy Raphael and people coming out on TV because they got caught someone. I was married when I was young, and I was it was a process. Luckily, it was sort of a best friend situation and something I didn't really know or want to. I was waiting for the pill to fix me, and I have a different look at that now. But I also think sometimes that older people are ignored in support groups. I think there's a lot of things now where situations are different, and there's not that way of talking or feeling, and there's a lot of guilt on people's shoulders or a way. I'll relate back to PFLAG. Of other support groups necessarily that help with people that have maybe in a marriage where that discussion is coming up, and a way to kind of discuss that. I'd say actually, Tyrese, I'm really impressed with the sort of work you were doing. What would you find in a situation like that where it's an older person, or have you primarily worked with youth? I know.
I work with all age demographics and social economics, right? I'm literally like, people call me literally a care bear because that's really how open my personality is, right? And being that I do have such a cultural diversity to myself coming from executive from the hospitality realm, I used to oversee hotels for years, right? And so that opened me up to a huge international market that just allowed so much competencies around just different backgrounds. And to hit on your specific question around elders, when we're talking about neglect and we're talking about abuse and we're putting it into kind of terminologies for the demographics that we're talking about, we still need to shine a light on letting them know that, hey, in our community, we do see older age, right? That still is a part of a community that needs to be. And so if there's a way where you can kind of utilize or even kind of catalyst some of the elders in the community that would like to give back in certain way, shape, or forms and kind of give them a voice at the table, whether that's through some type of subcommittee where you can use them as the advisors, where it's still that they have, excuse me, their experience and their time and just the value experience around what triumphs they've had, right? Because in order for them to do what they do, it has allowed us to do what we've done, right? And so it's really allowing them to understand a little bit some of the history that way. So if you have elders in the community of these represented populations that's willing to do some subcommittees for you and allowing them to kind of have a round table so that they can learn how to appreciate the voice of those that's kind of walked before them, that would be a beautiful, beautiful way to kind of start bridging some of those gaps that you would want to tackle.
Right. You have find that where are you at again?
I'm located in Seattle, Washington.
Do you feel like there's many resources there, like a location they can go to, like or Zoom? I like both. Going to groups in person, the easiness of Zoom, but are there organizations that maybe you like, is the LGBT Center? Do you have things like that as far as resource?
There's different programs by different age demographics, certain resources, but within our state, when we're just talking as a whole demographically, marginalized communities are very, very limited versus what the general pop is. And so when we're talking about services being advocated for, even offered, that's still some of the work that this particular state still has the work to do. And even though it's progressive in so many ways, but the representation is few far in between, which is why myself works in other states and support other places where there's a heavy demographic need, there's a support. And so you'll see a lot of communities that are trying to invest, kind of like what Trend is doing in a little way of saying, hey, we don't have, but we need. And so you'll see like a lot of kind of, like I kind of say, like mom and pop, let's get to somebody's living room and have a moment. And like you had highlighted as well, the virtual connection is is just such a benefit. And the pandemic has really shown us. So it's really been allowing us to kind of connect and build spaces from where we are, logistically. I think Rhonda has a question.
Yeah.
I do, and a comment. So as a recovery advocate in a treatment facility, I had the pleasure, just the honor to work with many transgender folks. And, it was such a stigma of how, how they were living their lifestyle and how, what category are they putting themselves in and such and different things like that. And I saw this and I'm like, man, these people are coming forward because they need help, right? And now we're not only our first thing is we're trying to figure out which dorm to put them in. And I see that barrier. I actually had a phone call. I was on the phone all day and night with a dear friend whose son is in transition, and he is now in one of our hospitals here in Houston. But that question came up. Is he going to be safe? Is he going to be, disrespected? I mean, just different things like that. I would love to find, here in Houston, some type of platform that could bring, you know, the, um, the peer support, the treatment centers, the hospital, just different people to come on board and listen and to meet them exactly where they are and then try to figure out, where they're gonna sleep next or where we're gonna be able to put them in a sober living home and such. So, as doing that, I think sometimes, per my observation, is the person at hand is is being put more is wanting, making them be more quiet about where they really are and what help that I can really offer them. And Houston has a huge um, HIV population and homeless population and such. And there is a great program here in Houston, downtown Houston, called Montrose, and they do Zoom meetings, they do walk-in meetings and such. So there is a lot of support, yet I also run into that barrier every day. This person is this, this person is this, and that's how they introduce the person as this rather than this is Rhonda Raz. She is struggling with mental health. She is depressed. She is whatever. She is, using cocaine again. She's on alcohol. See, that's the identifying factor, right? Not what I am. Does that make
Mhm.
any sense?
Um, yeah, it definitely
No?
does.
Okay. No.
Um, do you work, forgive me if I don't remember, are you a peer specialist?
Yes, I am.
Yeah. So do you work in an office situation where people actually go into and sit
N
with you?
No, actually, I go into the field. I'm on the firing line. I go to my people
Gotcha.
wherever they are, hospitals, sleeping in cars, and Walmart parking lots. You know, it's just I meet them right where they are.
Well, that's great. That's tough work. Um, I'm just thinking, in some ways, if there's, no one's going to necessarily know that you would be comfortable talking or having exchange or knowing, your daughter and coming out. It's one of those invisible sort of things where maybe you have a conversation about it. I was thinking, if you go to an office and you see something, you're like, oh, okay, there's an image, there's a picture, there's a rainbow, something to where you feel a little bit more comfortable knowing, hey, this is a place or some sort of thing in a facility that shows that that part of the community is there, like there's representation. I'm not saying wear a pin that says that, but when
Well,
you
you know what?
like,
I don't mean to interrupt you because I just started chuckling to myself because I wear a pin that basically has stigma and then the dash over it. So I wear this like no stigma button. I wear flair. Let me just put it, that's my flair.
cool. Um, Share has it's called collaborative housing, so it's shared housing. Right now, there's around roughly 40 houses, and this is in the Los Angeles area. And it's a way as far as like people that are homeless, are about to be homeless, or in a situation, all age ranges, really from 18, just because there's other facilities for people that are younger, but it's shared housing. I don't believe currently there's a house that is for LGBTQ or people. So there's sort of that. If someone's in need, is this going to be more comfortable for them to be in a house? It is all men or all women, but it's really important to kind of have that comfort level, I think, in some sort of housing situation, or there's also Pure Respites. Share does have one of those, and that's a 2-week stay, where you kind of learn. It's almost like a restart. It's a way to get out of a situation that you may be in. You need to not be around certain people or an environment, and that's something that's usually pretty open. Support groups are a big part of that, and gives people a chance to kind of like open up, live like a family for a few weeks. Do you want me to go over this list, or I can supply you with it? I mentioned that about PFLAG, and that's one. Have any of you been to a meeting like that, Tyrese, or have you, Rhonda or Trenda?
I have not. I'm not familiar with that at all.
Okay, it's a sport group that's been around really over 30 years. And initially it was PFLAG's, Parents and Friends of Lesbian and Gay. So it was before the discussion got even larger. So their name is a little confusing because it's expanded so much. And what that is more people that show up are those with a child, a family member, sibling who is coming to terms, who is coming out, who is starting to, it's actually probably more help for family members. If that's, it can be you lose a family member because of them being LGBTQ. So it's a way to kind of hear other people's stories, situations where they've come around, what's helped them. I mean, it's recently was in a television series called Love Victor, which had the family of a Hispanic, Hispanic family and child, a teenager going through that. And I thought it was the first time I've ever seen that shown in environment. It's not the only one out there, but does have longstanding. There's chapters all over. It's pflag.org, so pfag.org. I'll put in the chat this document that I kind of put together. Do you know, Tyrese, of resources that might be for family members? You know, being exiled from your family and having that be a core thing of maybe homelessness or turning to maybe addiction or sex work or some sort of way to support yourself. Do you have any thoughts on the best way to help in that situation? I'm looking at the chat.
Well, speaking specifically to Rhonda, because it seems like she has definitely a passion and an interest to serve within the community, but another part of the community with the transgender, understanding that you said you're located in Texas, which currently in today's time has a very aggressive stance on a lot of options of system of care when it comes to the community that we're speaking about. I would say it's time to maybe have fun with that stigma pin and do some very strong advocating with like local officials and representatives so that they can become more abreast of really what some of those hurdles or barriers have been, and seeing kind of what organizations or support structures that can kind of help you with some of that data statistics that would be influential or, you know, inspiring to have, because in those kind of conversations, they're really going to want to hear the data, they're going to want to hear the population, they're going to want to hear the effects of it, because then they're going to be able to say what's a conversation worth having. Understanding that the care systems that's required for the particular transgender community is so high, but the limited resources that Texas currently has with, again, the aggressive stance that they're taking, it's really where you're going to have to kind of start to use some of those stronger voices in the community so that they can get places. Because I don't have a direct knowledge of how structured they've been on the ground per se. I'm sure you probably have a way better viewpoint of what you're seeing day to day there. But when you are in contact with the community that you're having the passion for, are they at all giving you communications on what they do utilize for service and supports currently?
I do get that. You know, one of my, and I'm sure every peer support specialist probably says this, is housing. Housing and transportation are always our two biggest things because we are in Texas, you know, kind of spread out a bit.
Mhm.
Um, so can I be very transparent right now? I mean, it's a very open, and my point of asking that is the questions as I'm looking for housing, okay, or I'm looking for a treatment facility or a psychiatrist or different things like that is, well, you know, have they gone through a medical transition yet? No, they haven't. If it is a female transitioning into a male, well, is she living as a female or is she living as a male? And we can't put her on the male side because you know, it gets so muddy that it's like it's like there's no clear code for taking you know, those of, you know, my clients and such into a setting where those barriers have been put to the side so we can really work with what's going on with them. They're being separated from their families. They may be getting a divorce and have children. You know, there's so many different things like that, but just getting past that initial just it's I find it so distasteful, but that's me because I just see you as you. I don't, you know, I don't have to put a name on you. Um, and that's it, you know, that is the biggest obstacle that I have here in Houston is just finding a place where my transgender clients can go for safe housing while we work a program of recovery.
Question for you. Do you have relationships or are aware of any LGBTQIA plus religious services like churches that are very strong or have a strong representation in the community?
I do not here in Houston. I'm from Dallas originally, and there is an amazing church in Dallas in Oakland that is a go-to. I mean, you just go there and everything seems to work out just fine. But I have not made that connection here in Houston, but that sounds like a really good idea.
Right, because that's gonna definitely strengthen the social working aspect that I'm hearing that's needed and required, and
Right.
they would be able to support maybe potentially with some boarding in certain places because they're gonna have communities that would already have a welcoming and an understanding that
Yes,
could
that is
leverage with
true.
some of those concerns you're talking about.
Right. Well, and as somebody in recovery, I certainly can hit up, all their meetings, right? Wiggle my way in through the back door by the coffee bar and get to meet those. But that's a good, I have taken note of that. I want to start looking at some resources in the faith-based community. And as you said, I think that we'll get a more approach with love
Mhm.
than the approach with um, not knowing what to do. What not knowing what to do, but not knowing how to do it based on someone's place where they are in their life.
Right.
And then I get mad because I'm just kind of like, you know what, you need to, and then um, I'm sent down the road. I'm pretty much kicked out of there, and they're like, "Oh gosh, go away from us." But I appreciate that. That's a really good takeaway. Thank y'all for letting me be transparent and
That's-
just able to share from my heart.
And then it looks
Yeah.
like Trina put something in the chat for you as well, Rhonda.
Okay.
Yeah. In Houston, also checking out the website, that also Trend posted with Hear Me, which is, interesting and kind of poke around in it for a second. I think that, especially when it comes to the trans community and, you know, having the, let's say, the bravery to live their life daily and being able to find a place to live, um, where they can be that, be who they are, is really important. I mean, churches, I think it's a great place to definitely look. And I guess it kind of depends on really what the congregation can sort of be like. I don't know if there's a way to kind of get an idea of, other than maybe attending the church, to know what they'd really be facing. I grew up in the Mormon religion, and all there's been changes. Utah just had some bills that passed,
Right.
that were negative, um, against
Yeah.
trans and with restrooms and things like that. So
Mm,
it's I'd say that, doing a little bit of research, um, about specific uh, church or religion, that sort of thing, would benefit. Maybe that's you reaching out or getting some sort of, what the religion is really like, or the church.
right. Well, and one of the things I've um, have been in prison ministry in the past and a lot of street ministry with sex trafficking and commercial sex exploitation and different things like that. And I totally agree. I would not want to send someone to a place that I hadn't gone there first. and to, it's, you can't recommend the restaurant until you've tried it.
Right.
And to go in and just see what the truth is inside of those doors.
I know I'm seeing, I'm in the Los Angeles area, so
Uh-huh.
you can see the church and you can see a flag out there. And recently I saw a flag with spray paint all over with some
Mm,
words. So, finding those places where is sort of a thing. So I'd say maybe social media. You got an idea if there's some sort of social media to get it to see what they're really presenting, um, what's out there, what the community base is. But I like the article that you'd sent, Trinidad. It definitely has some information in there. I'm just hoping that it's continued. Whoever
right.
might have were passed through or what so. But um, I really appreciate this as a conversation. It's sort of like things like this make me inspired. Like I really, why am I not doing an ACA group right now? It's LGBT, you know. I go to those meetings on my own. I've led meetings, I've been secretary of meetings. So although that's a 12-step based group, it's slightly different in a sense that there's the prayer you say at the end has a variation, so you're not always looking at your higher power. It has a lot to do with, it's sort of like all of the groups that I found. There's different things that you can take from and still benefit.
And I would like to add into that too, even if it's not a faith that they particularly themselves are engaged with, I think probably a key question for you, Rhonda, that you could utilize would just be inquire, what is their community engagement mission? How are they looking to
Mm,
support the communities that they're representing? Because then I'm sure they would give a plethora of what they're aiming to do, what they have done, or what they didn't even know was a need. So really be encouraged to have some of those dialogues that even if you feel like it could be a repeated question, we'll just repeat the question.
that's good. I like that.
Yeah. That's a great website you just put in there, Trenda. Looks like
You guys are so, I'm so
yeah.
grateful for all of the all of the resources that you guys are putting in. And like I said, this is something that I'm faced with, you know, often. And my phone never stops ringing. Like I said, I had a dear friend whose son had a breakdown, and she's scared. She's scared for him. She's scared for his mental health. She's scared for how people are going to treat him, and to just have that empathy. The empathy that we're going to love him enough to get him help, and then love him enough to get him in a position where he can help others. And when I say love, I talk about the hard work, because that kid, I have another kid that I can't love to death because he's just in the cups and love. Anyway, I'm just gonna stop rambling, y'all. It's actually 6:20 here, so I've been on the phone a lot today.
Gotcha. I would like to just mention that if you're able to, the next presentation is going to be State of Peer Services in California, but it's
Mhm.
broader than that. There's laws that are changing here. A lot of funding is possibly going out away from mental health. Um, and peer services in general. If you want to stick around for that presentation. It's about 40 minutes away, but maybe that's a time to get a little break, stretch, and you'll have some energy for it. Does anyone have anything they'd like to share just as we're sort of exiting this presentation? Or really discussion. I really appreciate it. hearing from all of you.
I did as well. Thank you guys.
Yeah, Brian, you said you had some resources as well. Do you have like a handout that you could drop into the chat that we could download, or are they specific to California? Are there any resources that you could recommend nationally? I pulled several just in my little Google searching over here while I was looking for things for Rhonda, but just wondered if you had others as well that were specific to support groups, which I actually discovered that NAMI, the National Alliance on Mental Illness in Illinois, has an LGBTQ specific support group that focuses on recovery support. So I thought that was really fantastic. I didn't even know about that in my own state. But I found it and I bookmarked it and sent it to a few other folks that work in recovery support services across the state so that they can also share it widely and distribute. But I'd love to see anything that you have that, you know, we could glean from as well.
Yeah, I'll put it in the chat. It's PDF. It's resources I've sort of used for, but I mean, you can always find things, and the most up to date is always, you know, best to go to the sources. DBSA is another support group I have. That's Depression and Bipolar Support Alliance. So it has a lot of support groups. There's some that, you know, you can do training to be a facilitator for that as well. So it might be running across and doing a Google search if it was something, you know, has a mental health aspect related to LGBTQ plus person. So that I put that in the chat. Share is, you know, who's hosting this. There's a few LGBT support groups. They host over 100 Zoom and in person. That's it gets people going to it from all over the country, and that's things like Debtors Anonymous, all sorts of other support groups. So, but you know, I think typically like SoCal ACA is, if you go to World Services, adultchildren.org is for the ACA. That has to do with pretty much anything to do that has a childhood trauma element or parent or family member. I find it helpful because it deals with mental health, but it also deals with growing up in a house where you just you feel like you're the outsider. So that's all in the resources thing. And also the PFLAG meetings, sober related or addiction related support groups. And then there's other organizations like Sex and Love Addicts Anonymous, which goes beyond the sex aspect. It has a lot to do with relationships. In general, not just, but there are groups that are just men, just women, LGBTQ. It has a lot to do with obsession, maybe not letting go, not being able to let go of a relationship you had. So sex isn't the title, but it can, you know, there's variations of that. So that's in there as well. Relationships can have a big impact, I think, on the LGBT community, especially when it comes to like finding that person and trying to have bringing that person in the fold of family and not having, you know, that can be a basis for a lot of stress, a lot of added stress in a person's life. So, yeah, if it's in the chat, if you'd like to go to any other presentations, the website, there's going to be another conference in April starting. It's Peer Services. So this one's a little bit more based around research, and that one's going to have it's a little bit more of a different focus. But if you go to, I'll put that in. So overall, where any kind of conference work we're doing, and share. So this will have the videos posted from presentations available. So if you want either to attend any that you're interested in, let me know. And there's an evaluation. if you've registered, the evaluation is going to be sent. There's going to be a follow-up email along with posting of the videos or if you'd like to watch. So any of your feedback is appreciated. This is a basically just done off donations. So this conference, but it is the 4th year. Started actually the week of COVID. So we learned Zoom very quickly. But of COVID lockdown, I mean. So thanks. And I appreciate it. And do you all have access to the conference schedule? Let's see, okay. So if you want to check out anything else. But thank you. It was very nice meeting you all. I appreciate it. I've learned a lot from this. And, it's inspiring. So,
Thank you, Brian, Trenda, and Tyrese. It was a great meeting.
Yeah, great connecting with everyone here. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Good luck with what you're doing, Trenda, as well. And all the work.
Thank you so much.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
Yeah,
you're like,
you.
I think maybe.
No. I totally feel it's a congratulations. Like, just making the decision
Yes,
to leave my job after 14 years and start my own business. I felt solid about that. And I loved it that everyone in my circle was like, no one freaked out and said, what are you doing? What the hell are you thinking? But everybody said, congratulations. This is amazing. We're so, proud of you. How can we support you? And that has been a wonderful thing. And it was, the first day of not working, and I woke up and had my little oh shit moment,
Exactly. It's like, oh my gosh, can we just wind back the time 2 weeks ago when I told them I was leaving, that I was going on this crazy adventure?
No, it was brief and momentary, but I'm good now. So yeah, it was totally the right decision, and I received that congratulations. So thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Everyone have a good afternoon, evening, and I'll see you guys in the next forum. I know that it's going to be geared towards California, but it's always nice to hear what is going on everywhere else.